Welcome to the Greybeards podcast, where you've got three old guys with gray beards and about 150 years of experience between all three of us in national security, investigative reporting, both in and out of government. Got Ken Campbell in government and out, but who I trust explicitly with all things national security and who has extensive experience where this conflict is currently going on in the Gulf. And my good friend Bob Sands, who is a Hall of Fame investigative journalist. All three of us go back to 1995 working together and talking together about the Oklahoma City bombing in that era when we were all chasing bad guys of a different ilk around the country and who was responsible for this. Now we're in the middle of a war, and that's what we're talking about from our experience, analyzing what's out there. Most of it is open source material, and oftentimes that is where the best intelligence and assessment comes from, is from open source. So, Ken, we had the rescue today of that weapon systems officer, the Wizzo, after that F-15E was shot down near Isfahan in Iran. What are you hearing on this?
Yeah, so quite an effort that went into the recovery of both, in particular the second crew member. News media reported pretty in short order the recovery of the first crew member, and that was really good fortune. But when they ejected from that F-15, they don't come down together. They're going to be miles apart. That F-15 probably hustling at well over 500 miles an hour. And so when those ejection seats fire, the first guy out in a normal sequence is going to be the back seater. And then the second guy goes out, milliseconds after. But at that speed, you get this great separation. And so they don't necessarily come down together. And maybe in a way that was fortuitous. Of course, the second crew member, the weapons officer, came down in a different area several miles away, apparently. And then from what I was reading in news reporting this morning, he may very well have, immediately started to evade by, moving uphill or up mountain. I've not looked at the geography of that area, but the report talked about him moving, up to a higher elevation.
And 7,000 foot ridge line?
Yeah, something like that. But, of course, we all saw the news about the reward that was being offered for the safe capture of that pilot by the Iranian government to the Iranian people in that area. So that had to have been a pretty spicy little environment there for sure, Mike.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how this probably drastically changed the course of history, probably. Because if you would have had an American pilot or a weapons system officer, who I find it interesting is a full bird colonel, right? That was the last reporting I saw, that's flying as a Wizzo in the back of that F-15.
So we call leading from the front, but maybe in the back seat. But, I don't know if that's that unusual at this point.
But if the Iranians would have gotten their hands on one of those two American officers, that was a huge leverage point, probably would have dramatically, even though we have dramatic escalations every day, this would have sent it to another level. And someone like me who grew up, and like all of us, because we're Greybeards, grew up with the disaster in Desert One when 1980, the rescue attempt of the American hostages in the U.S. Embassy went south. Similar, there was this forward, it's called a FARP, forward ammunition and refueling point.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so it sounds like these two AC-130 or special forces.
No, just they were C-130. They have the exact name, but they weren't gunships. They were special operation logistics birds that apparently, and this was an education for me. We're set up to carry little bird helicopters, little reconnaissance surveillance gunships that used by special forces. And so I guess they landed those two MC-130s at that forward operating base, disgorged the little birds, and then used them to ostensibly support that operation, if not to pick up the pilot. Now, I did hear also, or read, that they had MQ-9 series Predators or Reapers that were actually orbiting over the downed pilot and standing by to protect him from any kind of encroachment by Iranian forces. So, it sounds like at a certain point, they had a lot of resources, ready to pick him up. And, what's wild, Mike, is that, if you go back in the day, and I'm talking about, previous CSAR operations, even going back to Vietnam, it might have been one Jolly Green helicopter, flying out to go and pick up a downed pilot that might have had a survival radio of some kind. Certainly not all the equipment that goes with today's pilots, with a beacon, a radio, strobe light, all kinds of survival equipment. But really what blew my mind was how multi-domain this was.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't, like just a bunch of guys going out to rescue a pilot. This was like a full-on package of logistics and intelligence and gunfighters.
And there's open source reporting out there as well that I assume is being leaked from our side, that the CIA had created a diversion. And that diversion was that they had already gotten the person on the ground and they were trying to get him out by ground to try to divert the Iraqis away from the area where they were looking,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Mm-hmm.
this is pretty well coordinated. I mean, it's everybody, it seems to me, did their jobs fantastically. What's unclear is those two MC-130s, right, Ken? Is that the correct designation?
Yeah,
I
MC.
think MC. MC-130s were damaged and had to be destroyed on the ground, but they had three others who flew in. Why would they do that, Ken? So it makes more sense to fly in those little birds as close to the location you can into enemy territory, probably flying in at nightfall or during the night and finding a flat space and putting down infrared lighting or strobes so that the planes can land, disgorge those little bird helicopters and go. It seems to me everyone would assume conventional wisdom, they flew the helicopters in for a long way, but with a slow moving aircraft like a helicopter, it's got a good chance, or several of them have a good chance of being shot down going in or going out. So
Yeah, I'm sure there was Pathfinders that were dropped in. Hell, they could have been dropped in by a low-level parachute drop, 600-foot combat drop. The Air Force certainly has got the expertise to do that with their forward air controllers and this sort of thing. The little birds don't really have the legs to have gone from, say, a base in Kuwait all the way into that location. That was another part that came out in the morning reporting, was that the little birds, have got they just don't have the legs to do a 243 kilometer flight and return. And so I'm going to just make an assumption that you had those H-60s, the Special Operation H-60s, which have a in-flight refueling capability. They're part of the package. And then you had the C-130s. And in some way, shape, or form, they got to the ground, set everything up. But whatever happened on that FARP, at least, two of those 130s were destroyed by U.S. forces and an and a Little Bird. So I'm just going to assume, they were damaged, or maybe they just had to get out of there fast and they didn't have the ability to take off. I don't know. That might come out in the wash. It may not. The fact is that was one hell of a well-executed operation, and we can all be proud of those servicemen and women that were involved in that, for sure and certain.
Well, one of the questions that needs to be answered and will be answered, I'm sure, as the whole story on this is told, reading between the lines, it seems to me that they knew where this other pilot was, but in the rescue of the first pilot, we had two of those rescue helicopters were shot up. Warthog, I love Warthogs because they saved my rear in Afghanistan and Iraq a couple of times with the units I was embedded with.
You
But the
mean one of
A-10,
those?
yeah, one of those, baby, one of those. I mean, I love those aircraft. I can see,
That has a lot of firepower on it, believe me.
oh, it does. When that cannon fires out of the front there,
Oh yes, the
it, I
30
mean, it
the 30
literally,
Gal, yes, the Gal 30 there.
it literally saved my life and the life of the unit I was embedded with at the time in Afghanistan. But I think it feels like the first package that came in and they got the first pilot, they wanted to try to get the second one, but because of the damage that was done with the original rescue package that was sent in, they had to fall back and regroup. And he hit, and it seemed like he hit in a crevice in this mountain ridge at 7,000 feet. It is absolutely an incredible story, and it kind of reminded me of it was Scott O'Grady. I was on the USS Kearsarge during the Kosovo War that had the Marine detachment on it
Right.
and aerial assets.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on there when Scott O'Grady was shot down by the Serbs, and he evaded capture and I was flown off the Kearsarge and then flown back on the Kearsarge by the Marines when there was certain they had recaptured him and was there when he came on the ship. And that was an incredible feat by the U.S. military. But this was on a whole new level. It seems to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It just was amazing, just amazing. And one of the things that the reporting this morning talked about was that, with the destroyed aircraft and everything else, we're talking over $2 billion worth of, weapon systems. And I'm just thinking, that colonel's life is worth, you can't put a cost on it. And that's what we do. We go and we get our own. We either get them out or we get them out alive or we recover them. That's just,
So, Bobby, where do you think we go from here, man? Because the president put out a tweet or a truth social post that seems like, okay, tomorrow is what, infrastructure day? We got our pilots back and we're going to hit you hard, it sounded like. And he
sure
used some
does.
bad words in that thing.
Yeah, in fact, because we're not on television, we can go ahead and read what he actually wrote if you want me to.
Yeah.
Do it, Bobby, do it.
I'm going to do it, buddy. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran, says the president. And he went on to say, there will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump.
Now, I didn't know that President Trump was a adherent to Islam.
Yeah, well,
okay, I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of time to celebrate the recovery before we started saying we're going to hammer you some more. And hey, look, people are on edge about what he's talking about and in previous tweets because he's really been using harsher, really more apocalyptic language in his public communications on social media. Is this, I'm not sure what more we can do than what we've been doing over the last month, but there are people out there who are concerned that they might take it to the next level. The administration might take it to the next level and use, tactical nuclear weapons. But in your estimate, and you don't think that's something that is in the cards?
I don't. And, I think that there's a lot of escalation that can be done before we go that route. For example, taking out their power grid, taking out their, ultimately taking out their source of water, desal plants and whatever natural water resources they have, reservoirs and this sort of thing. There's a lot that could be done before one ever has to reach to, that particular solution, which would just be, that's beyond taking it to a next level. I don't even know how to describe what the fallout will be, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, because aren't we basically talking about war crimes if we start targeting civilian survival systems?
Well, that's already, that's certainly a major subset. I don't know if subset's the right word, but subset or fallout of, there I use that term, fallout again, of targeting, the infrastructure that sustains life, if you will. I mean, water, you got to have water, right? You just start doing that, but getting back to Mike's question and concern about the use of tactical nukes, again, I think that there's a lot of other things that can be done conventionally to continue to pressurize Iranian leadership in the IRG.
Does that take us back to ground troops?
That's a possibility, absolutely. I think there's a higher probability at this point because nobody wants to see the casualties from a ground assault. Even the president, I don't think, really relishes going up to Dover Air Force Base and wants to avoid doing that. And so I think that the infrastructure targeting would come before boots on the ground.
And you made the point earlier, Mike, if they tried something like that with Karg Island, they'd just leave our troops, they'd be sitting ducks.
Well, if you see that west coast of Iran on the Gulf, I mean, you could. It's not like on the west side where it's there aren't huge mountains on that side. On the east side, on the Iranian side, the huge mountain ranges. You could throw rocks down. But the thing is, forget about the missiles and drones. You'd be under constant artillery attack down there, and you have to resupply. You can't bring in amphibious forces through the Straits of Hormuz. They're going to be attacked going through. You could do an air assault, and if they did that, that's probably, I think, what they would do. But then you have the other potential target, which would be the islands around the Strait of Hormuz, those smaller islands there, but still, you could get those Marines or those airborne or air assault soldiers in there, but how long do you keep them there? What is their function? I mean, they would be sitting ducks for quite some time right in Iran's backyard. And, who knows what kind of surprises they set for them. I don't know, Ken. I just think it would be very dangerous. Of course.
No, I
everything there is very
agree. I
dangerous.
agree. And I think that, the lessons that we learned going into Iraq in certainly 91 and then continuing on and off until again the invasion in 2003, that was a different. There's quite a difference between what Iran will field with the IRGC versus what Iraq fielded with its Republican Guard. I don't think you're going to see the kind of dissembling of the force that we saw under the Iraq command structure. I think the IRGC, to some degree, is going to put up a fight. This is invading their homeland, and there's a certain pride there and sense of, I don't know the word nationalism is right, but there's certainly a sense of the homeland. So I don't know.
So what do you guys think about the chances of the Straits of Hormuz being opened up sometime tomorrow and avoiding this shower of hell that the president's talking about?
Oh, I would say 0.00.
Had a feeling that'd be the answer.
0.0. Is that a quote from Animal House? When the boys were
like
standing
that.
before the
I think so. Yeah.
So I guess tomorrow's a big day. We'll see if hell really rains down or if we have another taco event.
Well,
Yeah.
I think hell will rain down. What do you think, Ken? I mean, the chances of
No, I think it's going to. I think that it's going to. There's a lot going on right now with what I would refer to as our former allies and coalition partners working together, 30 plus countries coming together without the United States to figure out a solution for working with Iran to open the straits. So I think that, come tomorrow, it's going to be the same as yesterday, and then that Trump will order an escalation. That's going to happen. And it just remains to be seen how much escalation happens, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Getting back to that just for a second, that tactical nuke thing, and that was being floated all over uh, the digital space, social media yesterday. And it concerned me. But one of the things and one of the reasons I think that besides just taking it beyond the next level, as you said, Ken, was that, if we were ever to use that, let's say, even to place a tactical nuclear weapon on the ground, sending in special forces, putting it at the site where we think that that 900 pounds of enriched uranium is, that the use of that would give Putin the green light and an excuse to go ahead and use it in Ukraine. This because they've got the same sort of weapons, and I'm hoping that that isn't ever done anywhere, because it will open up a new era of risk and warfare in the globe that I don't think we can even imagine.
Yeah, and let's not forget Kim Jong-un. I mean, he's got nukes, and he's got ballistic missiles that, quite frankly, are designed to deliver those. So you got that guy out there as well, besides Putin. So, yeah, I share your concern, and I hope that doesn't happen. Absolutely.
Hey, Bobby, you've been looking at the market, so it seems like we're into a phase, or no, into kind of a rhythm here that's going on, where big threats and big things happen after market closing on Friday, and then we seem to resolve those big threats verbally, but not on the ground. Yeah, tell that dog, okay, right now we got to send that or put him on.
Yeah, Max,
bring him in.
Come here, Max. Come here.
Let's see this star.
Come on.
We're just
everybody loves puppies, man.
Come on.
This is a puppy. Three old guys here, just talking this through, seen a lot, and we didn't get anywhere without our dogs.
That's true.
Well, now I got two of them, so excuse me just a second.
All right. Yeah.
No, actually,
right.
The critical thing that Good Friday came at a unique time, because the markets closed Thursday night, not Friday. And when they did, West Texas was over $111 a barrel, even higher than Brent, which was at 108. Now, Brent finally settled out about 109. So the U.S. benchmark is at a record high. The world benchmark is right there behind them. And we open up tomorrow morning, and we'll see what happens with those numbers. Because I think everybody is waiting to see, as we've already talked about, what happens tomorrow. And that'll dictate what happens to those prices. Because right now, everything is getting incredibly expensive. Anybody who goes to the grocery stores are going to see the impact on prices. It's very clear.
So that's really interesting, Bobby. I've got a question for you, but one thing I want to highlight. I do work part-time for a friend of mine that has a marine services outfit. And over the weekend, we were talking about, the global impact on markets and economies of the Iran war. And he said, I was just informed by my distributor that the next 50-gallon barrel of resin, which is used for, fiberglass, repairing boat hulls and this sort of thing, up 50%. And that's because the manufacture of a good deal of resin that is used in those processes comes out of the United Arab Emirates.
That's what's really amazing. I think we're getting a lesson on just how global everything has truly become. I mean, the cap on the power steering resin reservoir in my truck was made in India. I mean, and I drive a Ford. Okay, so I mean, it's like anywhere you go, there's stuff that's going to be impacted by this. And we're just discovering how big that impact is going to be.
Hey, we've got enough oil and natural gas here, but that doesn't make any difference. We're subject to the global price. This is a global commodity. So I hate it when I hear that we've got plenty of it. Well, yeah, we've got plenty of it. We don't require the oil that's not coming through the Straits of Hormuz, but we're sure as hell paying the price.
Yeah, we're just as influenced as anything else. This is a worldwide market. We don't set the price for crude. The commodity markets do, and those guys are all looking at the world situation because that's what dictates all this.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed for the first time yesterday paying over $5 a gallon for fuel. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, Bobby, I've been watching a lot of the reporting, reading a lot of the reporting, watching the news, this sort of thing, about Iran now targeting specifically U.S. companies in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. And there's been reports that specifically in Bahrain, that a Batelco telecommunications company building, housing Amazon Web Services servers, was deliberately hit for the second or the third time. And in addition to that, they're going after oil and gas infrastructure from Kuwait all the way down to the Emirates. And we talked earlier in a previous discussion about the impact on fertilizer precursor chemicals and the downstream impact that that's going to have on the farmers. Have you got any updates on that, or can you comment on that?
Well, it was very interesting. Some of the things that are happening, especially, I mean, you got to realize Brazil has become a major competitor for us. And now they're feeling it. The soybean market is dominated by the Brazilians, and they're facing the same kind of problems our farmers are facing, which means a dramatic increase in the cost of fertilizer, dramatic increases in the price of diesel fuel. Those are two basic things. What's most important right now, this is planting season. Now, the winter wheat's already been in the ground. That's already there. That's all over Oklahoma, Kansas, and the breadbasket. But what isn't in the ground so much is the soybeans, the corn, and the cotton. And that's where Brazil jumps in on the market. And Brazil now is realizing they're going to have probably a limited harvest, which is going to impact everybody clear across the world.
Yeah, and how about those small family owned farms and the independent truck drivers and whatnot? What are you hearing about their ability to weather this crisis and stay in business?
They're just praying that what they've been told by the White House is true. As soon as this is over, prices are going to plummet. And I've talked with a couple of guys, and I said, guys, you realize that's not going to happen. Infrastructure has been damaged here. It's going to take probably months for things to get back to normal. And the blank stare you get back is, I can't survive that. So
what have you heard with regard to, I know you guys are close to your congressmen and senators out there, at least in terms of what they're talking about and this sort of thing. I mean, what are you guys hearing in terms of the sentiment, whether Republican or Democrat or MAGA or whatever you want to call them? I mean, what's going on? What are they doing to address some of this, if at all?
Well, Mike, I don't know what your take is on this one, but right now, it's an election year, and none of those guys are going to say much of anything that makes Mr. Trump look bad because Republicans dominate this state. And right now, all of the push is who's most Trumpian. The former highway patrolman, is he the most Trumpian, or is this? I mean, the competition for that is through the roof. So anything he does or wants to do is carte blanche for those guys. Interestingly enough, though, one of our major congressmen was called back to D.C. the day before Easter, yesterday, for something. Tom Cole is now back in D.C. He's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. What's he doing? What's going on? Something's happening with either the $200 billion request for more money for the DOD or something else, a budget package of something. And it's big because you wouldn't call a guy back a day before Easter if it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, no, that was strange. But in going back to the candidate, and Bob's right. I mean, I saw a commercial this morning watching them. And by the way, folks, Bob Sands and I are in Oklahoma City, and Ken is in the Washington D.C. area. Oh, we're in the heartland, and he's in the crazy land over there on the East Coast. But
I'm in the I'm on the fringe of the swamp. I try and keep my waders near.
But one of those gubernatorial candidates was talking about the gas prices that the high gas prices, he's going to turn that around that the Biden administration caused. I mean, we're way past that, folks. Come on.
Way.
They're getting through their primary, playing to that base, and we are in Oklahoma, which is a very conservative state. But I think I'm anxious to see what's coming this week, and I thought, close it out by looking ahead. I mean, it feels to me, Ken, and you're monitoring this from open source reporting around the globe constantly.
Oh, we got world on there.
World War II, yeah.
Bobby's house.
The
And
dogs
we
are
have
disagreeing.
going, too.
Okay, there's
I
a
can tell
bone
you
on the floor. Who
both
gets
of
it?
us have dogs and get a butt kicking here after we
The
get through
podcast
recording
is out of total fucking control.
Excuse me, guys.
I didn't know we were going to do humor too. I can do my Julia Childs impersonation.
It's okay. I think I got them separated at the moment.
We're just three jamokes here trying to help you make sense of what's going on in the world. Trust us, we do have a pretty high-end experience on dealing with situations like this because we've seen most over the last
talking
half
about the
century.
dogs. Are we talking about the war?
Well, the dogs too. But the dogs may have a better podcast than we do if they keep. But what do you? It feels to me, Ken, that actually, and we're not seeing it because there are reporters scattered throughout that region. But I feel like we're having a hard time getting a complete picture.
Yes.
But it does feel to me that it's ramped up in the last week a little bit. That the attacks by Iran and by us and Israel going back the other direction are increasing. Do you get a sense of that, or do you think?
No, I think you're right. When we say increasing, I think the really the better way to characterize it is that Iran seems to be improving its precision strike. So when we look at how many launches are being done.
Yeah.
I think the statistics are saying, they're 90% less than they were when this thing started. That said, there's reporting all over the news on the weekend that quoted the intelligence community, which is anchored, by the DNI and CIA and other agencies, that Iran had only expended 50% of its missile assets. What that more than implies is certainly a continuing capability on their part, but more important from our side, we've expended a lot of very expensive interceptors and have a limited amount of them. And so the question is, did Iran really prepare well for an eventuality like this? And as part of their strategy, plan on, fighting an attrition type, effort in which they would trade our interceptors and still have a whole bunch left to play with. And I think that's what's happened. But getting back to it, from the reporting that I have pulled together, given the past week's strikes in Kuwait and Bahrain and the Emirates specifically, and even in Qatar, they're precision. They're not just willy-nilly going up and coming down. They got first-person drones that are flying to their targets, which means they have the geocodes of the targets they want to hit, and the same thing with the missiles. So what else does that tell us? That tells us they have eyes on the ground. They have, Iran has agents in the form of their intelligence operatives and or, sympathizers that were already in place, in position. And that wasn't something that happened just overnight. I mean, they've been there for years. I could tell you stories from 30 years ago about, some things that were discovered. Like, for example, the guy that put the secure phone in my residence when I was in Bahrain turned out to be maybe not so good. I learned about that 20 years after the fact, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Hey, well, next episode of this podcast, Ken, I want to talk to you about your experience over there and how that, may be helpful to understanding what's going on now, because you're in the middle of some pretty hairy stuff over there during that time in the Gulf. And Let's get to that, folks. We're going to keep on this. And we're just three graybeards, but we hope that you'll listen to some of the things we have to say, some of the wisdom we have. It's based on experience. It's based on sources we have all over the world, and it's based on friggin' common sense sometimes. And I think hopefully I've got more of that than I used to have. But hey, guys, let's reconvene here shortly, and we'll come back with more for you on the Graybeard Podcast.